Chapter 6. Seeking Help. Another month passed, and the transformations that had once been gradual were now nearly complete. Ash and Dawn had reached a point where they could no longer deny the severity of their situation. They were desperate for answers, for some way to reverse the changes that had taken over their bodies and lives. Their only hope now lay in the hands of Professor Rowan, the renowned Pokémon researcher in Sangem Town. The two of them had agreed to visit Rowan's lab, hoping that the professor's expertise would provide some explanation, some solution to the nightmare they were living. But even as they traveled to Sangem Town, the weight of their transformations hung heavy between them, an undeniable reminder of how much time had passed, and how little of themselves remained. Ash's transformation. The journey to Sangem Town had been difficult for Ash. Each step felt foreign, his body unrecognizable in almost every way. He had become Dawn, physically, if not completely. His once broad shoulders were now delicate and narrow, his torso slim and feminine. His hips had flared out into the soft, rounded curves that Dawn had once possessed, and his waist had pulled in, giving him an hourglass figure that felt both alien and uncomfortable. The most unsettling change, however, was his chest. Ash had resisted the changes for as long as he could, but over the last month, his breasts had fully developed. They were perky, full, and undeniably feminine, a constant reminder of how far the transformation had gone. He could no longer avoid wearing bras, Dawn's bras, as all of her underwear was lace, leaving him with no choice but to wear the delicate lacy undergarment. The feel of the soft material against his skin, the tightness around his chest, it was all too much. He had tried to ignore it, but every movement, every shift, reminded him of what he had become. Today, he wore a pink lace bra that matched the lace panties he had on underneath his clothes. The bra hugged his new breasts, supporting them in a way that felt both strange and necessary. His penis, while not fully gone, had shrunk to the point where it was little more than a flat, almost vestigial part of him now. It rested awkwardly in the lace panties, a faint reminder of the masculinity he had once had, but was quickly losing. His body had become almost entirely Dawn's, save for this last vestige of himself, and even that seemed like it wouldn't last much longer. His hair was now fully Dawn's as well, long, straight, and flowing down his back. He had given up trying to tie it back or keep it short. It was impossible. The silky strands cascaded over his shoulders, brushing against his skin in a way that felt unnervingly soft. His face, too, was hers. Delicate, feminine features, high cheekbones, full lips, and long eyelashes. His voice had changed completely as well, high and melodic, just like Dawn's. Sometimes, he didn't even recognize the sound of his own voice. Ash adjusted the pink miniskirt he was wearing, Dawn's miniskirt. It fit him perfectly now, sitting snugly around his hips and thighs. He had paired it with one of her white tank tops and the black vest that she often wore with it. The outfit felt too revealing, too feminine, but he had little choice. His own clothes no longer fit, and Dawn's wardrobe had become his by necessity. The high-heeled boots he wore clicked against the pavement as they approached Professor Rowan's lab, each step punctuating the strangeness of his situation. Dawn's transformation. Dawn, on the other hand, had taken on Ash's former appearance almost entirely. Her once petite feminine frame had morphed into a muscular, masculine one. Her shoulders were broad, her chest flat and firm. Her face had become more angular, her jawline strong and defined, just like Ash's had been. Her voice had deepened to match his usual tone, gruff and confident, and her posture had shifted to reflect her new body. Casual, athletic, and powerful. Her height had increased as well. She was now as tall as Ash had once been, and her legs and arms were thicker, more muscular. Her hair, which had once been her pride and joy, was now wild and unruly, streaked with black and spiking up in all directions, just like Ash's had. She'd tried taming it, but it was no use. It refused to behave. Dawn wore Ash's clothes now. Baggy jeans that fit her muscular legs, and a loose t-shirt that hung comfortably on her broad shoulders. She had tried to hold on to her own style for as long as possible, but her clothes no longer fit her bulkier frame. The skirts, dresses, and tank tops that had once made her feel pretty and feminine now looked ridiculous on her. So, she had resigned herself to wearing Ash's wardrobe. It fit her better, even if it made her feel like a completely different person. As they approached Professor Rowan's lab, Dawn's heart pounded in her chest. She had always been confident, but this was something she couldn't control. She felt like she was losing herself, piece by piece, and the idea that this transformation could be permanent terrified her. Seeking help, Professor Rowan's lab was nestled in the quiet outskirts of Sanjam Town. The familiar scent of books, research equipment, and the earthy aroma of Pokémon filled the air as Ash and Dawn stepped inside, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the spacious room. Rowan was waiting for them, his thick mustache twitching slightly as he adjusted his glasses. He had always been a stern, no-nonsense man, but there was a warmth to him that put people at ease. Today, however, he looked concerned as his eyes scanned over the pair standing before him. "Ah, Ash. Dawn," Rowan greeted them, though there was a clear hesitation in his voice. His sharp eyes seemed to take in their appearances with a mixture of confusion and concern. "You look different." Ash swallowed hard, his voice shaky as he spoke. "Professor, something's happened to us. He faltered, glancing nervously at Dawn. "We need your help," Dawn finished for him, her new deep voice rumbling in her chest. She saw Rowan's eyebrows shoot up at the sound of her voice, clearly taken aback. Rowan gestured for them to sit at a nearby table, and they did so, though Ash shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his legs crossing in a way that felt strangely natural but also wrong. The lace of his panties brushed against his skin, a constant reminder of what had happened to him. "Tell me everything," Rowan said, his voice calm but firm. "From the beginning." Ash and Dawn exchanged a glance before Ash began to explain. He told Rowan about their encounter with Arceus in the cave, the strange energy blast that had knocked them unconscious, and the slow but undeniable transformations that had followed. Dawn chimed in, explaining how their bodies had changed over the months, how Ash had become more like her, and she had become more like him. They spared no details, though Ash's face flushed with embarrassment as he described the more intimate changes. His breasts, his hips, the fact that his penis had almost entirely retracted. Rowan listened intently, his expression growing more serious with every word. When they had finished, he stood up, pacing the length of the room, as he processed the information. "This is unprecedented," Rowan murmured, more to himself than to them. "I've never heard of anything like this before." Dawn leaned forward in her chair, her hands clasped tightly together. "Professor, please, we don't know what to do. We're becoming each other. Our bodies they're changing more every day." Rowan turned to face them, his expression grave. "I'll need to run some tests. I can't promise anything, but I'll do everything I can to figure out what's happening to you." The tests. The next few hours were spent in a whirlwind of tests. Rowan took blood samples, ran scans, and measured every part of their bodies, comparing Ash and Dawn's current physiologies to their original heights, weights, and other metrics. The entire process was thorough, clinical, and exhausting. As the tests progressed, Ash felt more and more uncomfortable. Every time Rowan asked him to remove a piece of clothing, he was reminded of how completely he had changed. The feel of the lace panties pressing against his flat groin, the weight of his breasts in the lacy bra, it was all too much. He wanted to scream, to tear off the clothes and run, but he forced himself to stay calm. This was for answers. This was for a solution. Dawn, too, felt out of place. Her new body felt powerful, yes, but it wasn't hers. She didn't know how to move in it, how to control it, the way she had once controlled her own body. Every movement felt heavier, more deliberate. She hated it. After what felt like an eternity, Rowan finally sat them down again, his face somber. "There's nothing physically wrong with you," he said, his voice heavy with frustration. "Aside from the obvious changes, your bodies are healthy. There are no abnormalities in your blood, no signs of any illness or infection. As far as I can tell, you're both perfectly normal, except for the fact that you're not." Ash's heart sank. "So, you don't know what's causing this?" Rowan shook his head. "I have some theories, but nothing concrete. The fact that this began after your encounter with Arceus suggests that this is no ordinary transformation. Arceus is the creator of all Pokémon, the being responsible for shaping the very fabric of this world. Whatever happened in that cave, whatever that energy blast was, it wasn't random." Dawn's eyes narrowed. "What are you saying, Professor?" Rowan sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I believe this is some kind of test or challenge. Arceus may have done this to you deliberately, to see how you would handle such a transformation. It's possible that this is a trial, one that you need to overcome in order to reverse the changes." Ash's stomach twisted. "No. A test? Why would Arceus do something like this?" "I can't say for certain," Rowan admitted, his voice quiet. "But Arceus is a godlike being. Its motives are beyond our understanding. What I do know is that you need to retrace your steps. Go back to the cave where this all began. Investigate further. There may be clues there, answers that we can't find here." Dawn frowned, her hands clenched into fists. "And if we can't find anything, what if we go back and there's nothing there?" Rowan's expression darkened. "Then you may have to accept that this transformation could be permanent." The words hung in the air like a death knell, and Ash felt a surge of panic rise in his chest. Permanent? Was that even possible? Could he really be stuck like this? Stuck in Dawn's body? Forever? "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "There has to be a way to fix this. We can't. We'll figure it out." Dawn interrupted, her voice firm. She looked at Ash, her blue eyes filled with determination. "We'll go back to the cave. We'll find out what happened, and we'll fix this. I'm not giving up." Ash swallowed hard, nodding slowly. "Yeah, we'll fix this." But even as he said the words, a gnawing sense of dread settled in his stomach. The thought of returning to the cave, of facing whatever had caused this transformation, terrified him. But there was no other option. They had to go back. The road ahead. As they left Professor Rowan's lab, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the ground. The air was cool, and the sound of the distant ocean waves crashing against the shore filled the silence between them. Ash glanced over at Dawn, who looked so much like the person he used to be. It was strange, seeing his old self in someone else's body. and even stranger knowing that he was now in hers. Every step he took in the high-heeled boots felt awkward, every movement of his body foreign. He could feel the tightness of the lace bra against his chest, the way his breasts moved with each step. It was maddening. But Dawn looked just as uncomfortable in her new body. She walked with a slight stiffness, her hands shoved into the pockets of Ash's old jeans. Her wild hair spiked in every direction, and her broad shoulders hunched slightly as she tried to adjust to the weight of her new frame. "We'll figure this out," Dawn said, breaking the silence. Her voice, deep and rough, didn't match the confidence in her words, but Ash appreciated the attempt. "Yeah," Ash replied, though his voice, Dawn's voice, sounded small and unsure. "We have to." As they walked toward the edge of Sangam town, the road ahead of them seemed long and uncertain. But one thing was clear. They had to return to the cave. Whatever had caused this transformation, whatever test or challenge Arceus had set for them, they needed to face it head-on. And they needed to do it soon. Because time was running out.